What's up, guys? So in Diablo 4 there are so many interesting brand new mechanics like vulnerability, we have fortify, we have barrier. There's a lot of different things in this game that the previous Diablo games may not have actually had. But let's go ahead and go over the top 20 most important things with Diablo 4 that you must know. So let's go ahead and get started with this globe that is cracked on the health bar. So in the health globe, you can see on the bottom right over here, you can see all these images that I'll be running through, and I'll explain what each one of them does. But starting right off real quick, everything you see is subject to change. This is not the final version of the game, but at least in this current state, these are what these effects actually do. So over here we see where it basically looks like it's cracked. That is vulnerable. That makes so you take 20% more damage. Now, this can be applied to you as well as the enemies in game. The next status that I want to go over is actually called Fortified. What that makes it give you is it gives you 10% damage reduction when it's over your HP. It's basically kind of like a barrier. If you played Overwatch 2, it's like the overhealth mechanic. So it's going to be actually similar to the next thing we're going to be talking about, which is barrier, which actually removes itself over time. But there are different skill tree points that you can put into to make the barrier as well as the fortify, either the amount that you gain or the amount that it lingers, or in terms of duration. So those are the different effects on the health globe. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the actual skills in the game. You'll notice on the skill bar in like the 1 through 4, they have different colors. Now, depending on the colors, they do have corresponding effects in the game. So you have physical, which is usually going to be like a brownish color. And then we have the shadow, which is in the purple. Then we have poison, which is in the green. Then we have fire, which is in red. Blue for the cold. And then there's also lightning, which is kind of like a purplish color. This whole skill bar is a cold sorceress. If you guys want to see gameplay of that, I've already got a full gameplay that explains all the cold sorceress skills shown off in what was given to us for the gameplay that we were allowed to show. So those do matter. And what's interesting with this is there is a mechanic where you're actually able to change the colors of your skills by what's called an imbuable ability. Now, it's basically on the rogue for the most part, but there are going to be things that overlap, or in your party, it will grant your party members this sort of bonus. So it's not just for one class, because in Diablo 4, you will have to play with a party for certain pieces of content. So we have the Cold Sorceress gameplay over here. But you're going to need a party up, so you're going to want to know what other classes do, especially because PvP is integrated in the world of the game. It's a giant open world, so you might meet players that do certain things against you, and you want to be ready for that. So I'm just prepping you guys for that. So that's what that does. Now, certain monsters in the game will also have certain modifiers tagged to them via these little icons underneath their health bar. Now, what does each one do? We don't have like an official wiki, so I don't want to give you guys the wrong stats, but to kind of give you guys an idea on what some of these monsters may do over here, we will go ahead and actually see under the health bar, we'll see that there's vampiric, there's frozen, and there's shadow enchanted. So that's the modifiers that you see on this enemy. To actually see kind of what they do, we'll have to have an official wiki page, but I can explain. Frozen, it's similar to the like freezing pulses in Diablo 3 on elites. Vampiric is actually one of the most deadly things in the game. It's basically where they have life steal. So if your damage isn't meeting a certain threshold, they're just going to leech off of you. And then Shadow Enchanted, I believe, I don't know if it was just that enemy in particular, but it did fear, and it also, I'm guessing, gives potentially some shadow damage. But again, this is going to be reserved for maybe later down the line, because I don't know exactly, what the amount of percent of freeze or chill that it applies when you actually do frozen. And then also there's a mechanic in the game called Lucky Hit. And what it can do is it can instantly eliminate an injured target. Now, there's other things that like don't actually get explained when you just mouse over the item, and so some of these it's just via like text that I have in the game. Lucky Hit does is it makes it so it can eliminate an injured target, but it does not work on any of the bosses, any of the like world bosses or PvP. But a injured target in the game is considered a target that is under 35% HP. Let's go ahead and actually roll some other gameplay over here, because I've actually shown off that one in a full video. But again, check the pinned comment. I'll have a lot more videos if you want to see just gameplay here, because this is mostly explaining these 20 things that you want to know. But another thing that's very important in the game is not only knowing what a injured target is that's less than 35% HP. A healthy target is considered a target above 80%. And the reason why these things are important is because you may get an item that has a role where it does bonuses based off of if the target is injured or if it's healthy. And some of the stuff doesn't explain unless you go into basically a in-depth, different screen in the game. When you mouse over certain items, it doesn't actually tell you what it does. That's why I'm making this video, because I think these are very important things. Next up, what is the base crit? So base crit in the game will give you 50% bonus extra damage. Now, it's actually capped out, which is interesting, in the game at 100% bonus crit damage with certain gameplay mechanics. In PvP, it's capped out 100%. If you've played Diablo 3, you know crit hit chance, crit hit damage is basically what you want to start scaling towards the end of the game. Now, again, in PvP, it caps out at 100%. So you don't want to go over that number, otherwise it's completely pointless. And some players may not have actually, checked out this in-depth thing, so they wouldn't know. That's why this is important. Next up, what do the main stats do in the game? Because if you play Diablo 3, main stats are actually pretty important, right? So in terms of the main stats, what does strength do? Now, you don't get stat points when you level up, but once you get into the Paragon, which is towards the end game, there are certain nodes that you can put in that will give you bonuses, and then once you reach a certain threshold, you get extra bonuses. But to sum up what they do, here's what strength does in the game. Strength is going to give you extra skill damage. It's basically like your damage in the game. It's very, very small.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
It's not D3 where you get like flat 1% bonus per every number of strength, or what was considered main stat. So it's going to give you skill damage as well as armor. Int gives you all resistance. Will power gives you resource generation as well as healing overpower, and then dex is going to give you extra crit and dodge. A lot of these numbers are subject to change, but you really need a lot for anything to really make any difference. So don't worry too much about this for early game. Late game, it will matter quite a bit because you need to reach certain numbers to get bonuses based off of a certain number. They put it on their blog post. If I remember, I'll link the video that goes over like the end game system for the Paragon board that explains this more in depth. Other things that have been removed in the game, or perhaps may be moved to DLC or expansions. So the Rogue originally, when they showed it off, they had what was called the Shadow Realm, and what it would allow you to do is drag someone into a world where basically it was another copy of the world, but only you and that person in the Shadow Realm existed. So what that would mean for PvP, if it's like a 1v4 scenario, you can go up to someone, lock them into the Shadow Realm, and basically 1v1 them. That, in terms of skills, I don't see it anywhere. It could have been maybe moved onto Unique, but that is gone. Another thing that was actually removed from the game is runes and RuneWords. So that is, again, something that may be coming out later in maybe DLC, but I already have like the examples of how to even make a rune word. Like I was able to see fully like how it actually worked in the previous iterations of the game. If you guys want to check out a video, I'll pin a video down below on that. Now that has been removed, so any of these like uniques that you may see that incorporate some of these older things, they may be coming out later or at launch, but in the current state of the game, those did not exist. Now, other things that are important to know is what is unstoppable.
Who gonna stop me? Who's gonna stop me?
Unstoppable on a skill will let you remove all CC and prevent the CC for X amount of duration. So like Wrath of the Berserker or any certain ability, if you play Diablo 3, usually you'd have 100% uptime. You can't really do this in Diablo 4 where you have 100% uptime of some super ability that allows you to be completely immune to CC. But that's what Unstoppable does, and it'll usually make you immune for like 2 to 3 seconds or something like that. So in the game, there's also the chill effect, and what does that do? So chill reduces your movement speed. When it reaches a high enough amount of chill, it freezes. I'm assuming it freezes once you reach 100%, but I cannot confirm that. There wasn't like a tooltip that specifically mentioned this. There's another thing in the game called Crackling Energy, and what that does is it's almost like a very, very minor effect of Conduit. It's kind of tied to the Sorceress, but you can maybe get things, again, that are within the party, or maybe a certain unique item or a legendary item will give you the ability to get Crackling Energy, but it's a white orb, you pick it up, and it's just a small little like conduit from D3. Now, certain skills in the game have this thing as a tag called imbuable. So what that means is it's going to be modified by another elemental like ability, or it can be added like poison damage. Some skills have the ability to be modifiable by imbuable effects. Not every skill has the ability to do it, but yeah. There's another thing in the game called Overpower that gives you bonus damage based on your current HP. As far as I'm aware of, at least in the tooltip, it did not work on dot or channeled skills, so it has to be a specific hit. It has its own base bonus damage based on your current HP. I'm not sure if this is a percent or a flat number above whatever the damage number is, but basically it's a separate way of doing crit, if you kind of want to think of it like that. And there's also a class damage reduction in place in the game. If you play Diablo 3, Barbarians, Monks, I believe the Crusader, they all have a bonus damage reduction that isn't actually explained in the game when you create your character. But in Diablo 4, we only had access to a few different classes. It was Bard, Rogue, and Sorc. But there is a bonus damage reduction for certain classes. This really helps out with melee. Barbarian had a 10% free damage reduction. You don't need to do anything. Another thing that was tied to the Barbarian was a tag called Berserking, which I believe you can give your party members this for certain things. But what does Berserking do? So if your party member gives you Berserking, or if you're fighting an enemy that has Berserking, it could be very dangerous because it gives them 25% bonus damage and 30% move speed. It is very, very powerful. Another thing that I just want to mention, because this was a common question, I'm going to be making a video very soon on this, and this has to do with a lot of frequently asked questions. What I wanted to actually make a video on is how big is the actual world. So in terms of how big the world is, to walk, we had access to one of the biomes. In the launch, there's going to be 5 different biomes, and in order to walk from one corner of a biome to the end of the biome, it was about 5 minutes and 22 seconds. I actually timed this with 7% run walk speed boots. This was not killing any enemies, it's just walking from point A to point B. And in terms of how many sections would you have to walk across, in the biome it would be about 9. That's my estimate, just to walk from point A to point B. And basically what that means in terms of how big is this world is it would take you roughly 1 hour per biome just walking. We're not even killing any enemies with 7% run walk speed. No abilities activated, because certain classes, they may not have the same amount of mobility as other classes, and it depends on your skill bar if you want to put that in the game. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for a bunch of the different mechanics and things that you guys may want to know with the game that I feel are very important, because if you get something that's a bonus to, a certain vulnerability, percent increase, what is that? What is a healthy target? What's an injured target? I wanted to make this video to serve as a guide for that. But we'll go over a bunch of frequently asked questions very soon, and I kind of want to do a video review on the current game state of the game in terms of the beta, because we reached max level, which isn't really that hard. But we'll go over more things. So if you want to ask a question on Diablo 4, I've played quite a bit amount of it. So feel free to comment down below if you want to learn anything else and you want to know certain things about the game, maybe you've seen via other gameplay and whatnot. But if this is your first time here and you want to see more Diablo 4 content in the future, subscribe, turn the bell, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care and check the pinned comment for more Diablo content. I'm signing out. Peace.